and 10 for Kyler Murray facing a 5-man rush. Kyler back to pass, throws right, intercepted. Jack Griffin has won the game, and it's a high five for the Minnesota Vikings. They've won 5 consecutive games. The final score, 23-22, Minnesota.
The Analyst
Is Pete Bercich, analyst, in-booth analyst for the vast and ever-expanding Minnesota Vikings radio network and the flagship KFAN. This is courtesy of Sukup and Sukup.com, SUKUP.com. And here comes the analyst, Sam the Man on the Fan. 4 of 6 on the game-tying drive, the touchdown to Aaron Jones. 70 yards in 2.5 minutes after the Chicago game where he went 6 for 6 in overtime to win the game. Sam Darnold either has or is developing the clutch gene. And good morning.
Yeah, good morning. Yeah, I would say developing.
Right.
He's in a situation now where he's being put there. And, you know, this is kind of the benefit of going through the growing pains down in Jacksonville. You know, some of the growing pains against the Colts, some of these other teams where he's had some rough or questionable throws. And, you know, when you can ride through it, and he's able to pull himself out, then he's going to be better on the other side. And you know, there's the rookie growing pains, right? I mean, you know, Peyton Manning as a rookie and all the interceptions that he threw, and what happened after that. So we're seeing him. We're seeing a head coach who has a lot of faith in him. Especially, you know, after his last performance when Kevin O'Connell went way out of his way and said, he's our guy, we support him, he's our quarterback. And sometimes that's what a guy needs. And whatever he needs, he's been getting from this coaching staff for sure. But the being comfortable in a situation like that is you can be comfortable after having performances like he's had and being able to keep the job in return. And then, you know, the other thing is, even when he's been off, we've still been able to find a way to win, right? And like yesterday, for 2.5 quarters, our defense was making the best goal-to-goal team and number 8 in the league in red zone,
right,
kick field goals.
Yep.
So it hasn't been just a one-sided affair, obviously, with this offense, and the defense gets a lot of credit for keeping the game close and allowing him to do what he's doing. So it's always when you trace it back, a team effort, but he's absolutely capitalizing on his opportunity. And the more that other teams in the league see this out of him, the more that they're going to want to pay to get his services next year. So, yeah, it's a win. It's kind of a win-win for all of us right now.
That's beautifully laid out, Mr. Bercich. In fact, Sam Darnold was sacked 5 times yesterday. This is his first victory as a starter when sacked 5 times or more. He was 0 of 5 coming into the game. Darnold went down as a starter, went down 13 points or more in a game, was 0 for 23 until coming back against the Cards yesterday and winning. So those are just some little nuance related things developing with this veteran. Now,
well, and the other thing too, Paul, is he was sacked 5 times and didn't put the ball on the ground.
Right.
And he got rid of it, you know, and he there are a number of plays where he scrambled and just got rid of it. So that part of his game is getting better too. Right, because again, the Colts game, putting the ball on the ground, getting sacked. So we're seeing these small, incremental, small changes or improvements, and that allows you to win a game like they did yesterday.
Cardinals offensive coordinator Drew Petzing, who was raised by the Purple, put his team in an excellent position to win. 6 trips, like you said, inside the 20, the red zone, and just 1 touchdown. I mean, that's there's your game, Johnny. And that and all their penalties, specifically the pre-snap penalties, backing them up when they're in really good position, man. But, I mean, we got, that Chad Ryland cat, man. He's kicking field goals, where the ball stopped at like the 4, the 11, the 13, the 15. So they were getting close, but 1 of 6 in that red area. And those pre-snap penalties. Petzing, I thought, did a wonderful job crafting a game with short passes and a powerhouse running game to compromise that defense. It just wasn't enough.
No, it wasn't. I think the whole staff, Coach Gannon, Petzing, Nick Rallis, all those Rawls, excuse me, or however you pronounce it, excuse me. Rallis, yeah, they all did, right? And they threw defensively. They threw at our offense a lot of different things that they hadn't seen. Not that they hadn't seen it before in the annals of football. They hadn't shown it on tape. Right. So the linebackers blitzing from depth and doing some things to take advantage of how we protect, and then offensively, I was very, very impressed with the offense that they put on the field and especially with Kyler Murray and his accuracy. Right. He was, you used the phrase, it's like the cold-blooded measure. How many times do you say something was like a cold-blooded pass or connection on third down? You said it a lot yesterday, and there were a lot of situations where our defensive backs were in very tight coverage, and the ball was still completed. A couple to Michael Wilson, right? Of course, he got lucky on the one tip, but there were, I was very impressed with how Kyler Murray played. And they understood who they were, and it was just literally 3, 4, 5 yards at a clump, right? It was at a clip. This wasn't a, heave the ball down the field wide open, greatest show on turf type of an offense. This was a very deliberate, very difficult to get off the field, which is, again, why it was so important for our defense to keep touchdowns off the board. Because I looked at you, it was toward the end of the third quarter or right by the fourth quarter. I'm like, we might have 2 possessions the rest of this game.
Yeah,
remember, because each drive was taking 4, 5, 6 minutes.
Yeah.
So again, they played the best game that they could, and this is defensively, this is a very good defense, and they're young. They're very young. They're doing this with 5th, 6th, and 7th round picks up front. So I was overall very impressed with Arizona. We went through all the rookies that they started last year. People expected this year to be, not a great year, but they're seeing some development. So I think Arizona is definitely a team that's on the rise. They play, and they play hard. Defensively, they are very physical, and they play hard. And I think a lot of that has to do with having Budda Baker on the team, because that guy he shows these young guys what's possible, how you can actually run to the ball on every single play, and how you go about your business. And they're watching and learning. And Arizona is a better team than we think.
Hey, talkbacks and texts next segment. Reaction to the Vikings game or the season that has been or that will be. Free iHeartRadio app. Leave a talkback. We'll do our best to get to some of those. And texting is 64686. We text and talk. We text and talk back more than people know. So next segment, we'll play back some of those TBs and read some of those texts.
Hey, Pete and PA, you can chime in on this as well. I'm wondering if in the midst of the call you guys thought about this, because the Vikings kicked the field goal and it's 19-16. So they got a touchdown and a field goal on consecutive drives. It's early fourth, and the Cards go on this 16-play, 8-minute freaking drive up by a field goal, and it's 4th and goal from the 4 with about 3.5 minutes left. They kick the field goal, which makes it 22-16. On my couch, I'm thinking, could they just go for the touchdown here? And you mentioned 1 of 6 in the red zone, and ultimately this plays into it by settling for the field goal.
Yeah.
With 3.5 minutes left, guys, if they get that touchdown, it's 26-16 with 3.5 minutes to go. The game's effectively over. You've seen the momentum change. Sam's dealing, like you guys mentioned, how good he's been the last couple of games, specifically in the clutch and later stages of games. Instead, they settle for the field goal there, allowing an opportunity for them to come back and take the lead. I mean, that 4th and 5, even if you don't get the touchdown and the Vikings are driving for a field goal to tie, you're 4th and 5 at the 33. You're thinking about Romo from 51 maybe to tie it versus going for it on 4th down. I'm in some ways thinking maybe they go for it on 4th and goal there, potentially end the game by going up 10. I was kind of surprised on the road that Gannon didn't pull the trigger on that.
That's interesting, Pete, because when they went 16-66, 7:48, they ate up half the fourth quarter. I mean, it was meticulously guided to get exactly where they wanted to be, down inside the 5. They're a 94.5% goal to go team. Best in the NFL. You said it earlier. 16 of 17 on touchdowns into the game with goal to go. Yet they got soft down at the 4 and kicked the field goal. What do you think of all that?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, you can also. I mean, it depends on how you want to look at it, right? What are we on fourth down as a defense? What were we going into that game?
Yeah,
in the league,
first in the tied for first.
Yeah, tied. I mean, and
we're pretty good.
And they had struggled earlier. I think
Right.
I think the point there was to make it a situation where the Vikings, because if you don't get it, then the Vikings can march right down to the whatever 40-some yard line or 30-some yard line, kick a field goal and tie the game. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
So it put the Vikings in a situation where they had to score a touchdown. And oh, by the way, we had to go for it on a fourth down to get said touchdown. So with the way their defense was playing, I mean, we're an offense that what were we averaging about per game going into that 24, 25, and they were doing a very good job against us. I think in hindsight, those things are open, but I mean at the time when they decided to kick the field goal, I thought that was the right thing to do, because then it puts us in a situation where we have to score the touchdown instead of kicking a field goal to tie the game up.
That's what their coach Jonathan Gannon said after the game about that moment, where he's like, he understood the philosophy with the question, but he's like, we're going to make them score a touchdown, and they have won the entire game. So, he went that way, and I think discretion was the better part of valor there. But 16 plays, 66 yards, 7 minutes, 48 seconds, you get down to the 4 and you can't get in. Holy cow. Kevin O'Connell gave Jalen Redmond a game ball. I mean, he's played well this year in minimal opportunity. He changed the game yesterday, and it's found gold for the Minnesota Vikings if Jalen Redmond starts consistently disrupting things from the middle, right?
Yeah, absolutely. You look at our again, I've said this before, but if I'm a free agent interior defensive lineman, this is where I want to be, because you're not going to get double teamed as much. You're not going to have to two gap. We do a lot to help those guys up front, and Jalen Redmond, you need guys like him, guys that you either draft late or free agents that come in and surprise everybody on the upside. I mean, the entire defense on Arizona is that way with 5th and 6th and 7th rounders. These are defensive front. But Redmond, you need guys like Redmond to be developing and playing their best ball this time of year if you're going to be a playoff team and possibly make a playoff push. Some of these you need some additional playmakers or guys that turn up. Dallas Turner to develop. I think he did some good things yesterday, but for Jalen Redmond, we need a body like him who can come up with a big play at a big time throughout the rest of the season. So it's the most Flores thing ever, though, right? Pulling guys off a street on Tuesday, putting them in the game on Sunday, right? It's like I've never quite seen anything like it. In particular, I'm talking about Jamin Davis. We'll bring him in and we'll throw him out there. He'll get a role in the whole thing, and Fabian Moreau just stepping in, and he's been around a while, but between those, some of these names are going to change. I mean, look at Detroit. They're trotting out a bunch of names that were on the bottom of the depth chart, especially at the D-line and linebacker position, and they're still winning with those guys. So you have to, it's a long season. You have to find a way to keep winning.
He asks about Jalen Redmond, and I'm thinking that the Jalen Redmonds, the Pat Joneses, some of these guys playing roles in spots throughout games, allow a guy like Jonathan Grenard to look exactly the same in the final snaps of the fourth quarter that he does in the first quarter. Does that play into it at all? I mean, just how relentless is a guy like Grenard? How much of an asset is that, where this is a team that was on the field, this defense was on the field freaking forever yesterday, but somehow when it mattered, Grenard still had that burst.
Right. And we saw in a number, that's another interesting question to ask. I'm not a reporter, but I would ask, with the sitting of Harrison Smith for a little while, Grenard being out for a little bit, Van Ginkel in there, Dallas Turner in there more, this, rotation type of a thing, was that a result of the time of possession being so lopsided early, or is that something that was planned going into the game, right? But you're right. That's a lot. Jonathan Grenard, again, maybe not the flashiest. I mean, Andrew Van Ginkel has done some amazing things, but Grenard has been absolutely our most consistent pass rush, our most consistent against the run. I think he plays the run extremely well. I know we had a big run, or a 10-yard run off tackle, and you get a chance to see the replay, and I think Dallas Turner got a little mixed up with what he was doing, but you forget how well and how important Jonathan Grenard is against the run. He and Van Ginkel are both very, very good at setting the edge and doing certain things. Van Ginkel had one of I think it might have been on one of Redmond's TFLs when he came underneath he just came underneath the tight end, stood him up, and then looped underneath. So just the ability that those guys possess to play the run, even though they're not very big, right? They're not converted defensive linemen like Daniil Hunter standing up. These guys play the run very, very well. And Grenard's just been so solid all season. I think he's at 10 sacks now, but what a great get he was.
The Cardinals ran for 154, which more than doubles the Vikings average for running yards allowed in a game. Minnesota still allows 81 rushing yards per game, which is still tops in the NFL, but 154. How'd they manage that rushing number?
The quarterback helped. Right, I think I know at one point when we were talking about that, it was he had a third or almost half of the rushing yards, but Kyler Murray definitely was able to put some things toward that end, and I think some of it too is just the rotation. But Connor is a very physical running back, and they're dedicated to running the football. And they put those three tight ends out there. They play with those three tight ends on the field more than anybody else. I'd have to go back and watch the film to see if there was anything in particular. I think missing Ivan Pace in a game like that, where you got a team that's running the football that much, is going to matter. I know they were trying to match up Metellus in certain, two tight ends, certain, personnel, and that means we're basically playing with nickel out there against the run. So, yeah, I think a combo platter of really all of that. I know a couple runs where we blitzed one way and they ran the other way, or we blitzed and they ran right to that point. We're able to collapse the defensive line. So some of it, a couple of the bigger runs, I think were just bad timing. So I don't think there's anything I can look to that's categorically we've been exposed, or there's something that needs to be fixed. I think a lot of it has to do with just certain mistakes at certain times, and that's why. I don't know what their longest run, non-quarterback run was. Maybe in 10 yards, 12 yards. They didn't bust any 40-yard runs. They didn't bust any 30-yard runs. Is my point. That they may have been efficient, but they didn't get super explosive with the running game.
Lastly, Kirk Cousins and the Atlanta Falcons here Sunday noon, KFAN, 10 o'clock for the pregame, Vikings football Sunday. In the 6 years, what did you think of Cousins' run here as quarterback for the Vikings?
Yeah, he's an unbelievable thrower, right? Accuracy. You have to keep him clean, though. And when teams... How many times did we see it when the game would get to a certain spot and it was a passing type game, high scoring, teams are only rushing four, and the game basically turned into a 7-on-7 drill. That's when Cousins was just up and down the field, right? His ability to throw the ball deeply and accurately was fantastic. But he has some flaws. He has some things, and I think some of those are rearing their ugly heads down in Atlanta. I from what little I saw, and I haven't watched the film yet of the Falcons, but from what little I saw, he looks tired. He looks tired. He looks beat up. He looks tired. And that all bodes well here. I know there are a lot of people calling for a change and having Penix come in there. So, we'll see how that happened and what they, what the teams did to defend him. But, you got to respect Cousins. You can't don't just think that he's not going to be able to do it, because if you let this guy sit in the pocket and throw, which we really don't do, we get after quarterbacks. But if you just let this guy sit in the pocket, he can still get it done.
Yeah, my last thing for you, mentioned it, getting after quarterbacks. Kyler Murray had been sacked once or 0 times now in 8 of his 12 games. He gets around, he gets out, he's mobile. So you attack a guy like Kyler differently, maybe similar with Caleb Williams a week before. Kirk's not that guy. What if you're Flores, if you're in these rooms, how much does that conversation change when you're talking about a guy who wins with his legs versus a guy that's a little more statuesque and wins with his arm?
Yeah. Well, you saw if Caleb Williams was in the Arizona system, he might have been sacked 4 times this year, right? Because how many times with Murray did you have enough time to even get there? Because he's taking the snap, 1, 2, 3, plant, throw. It's his boom, 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 boom. You can't. We saw this is what the West Coast offense. A lot of what the West Coast offense did was such a timing offense. You could be free off the edge and still not have enough time to get to the quarterback. That ball is out so quickly. With Caleb Williams, they kept him in the pocket a little bit more, and so you're able to get to him. With Cousins, you know where he is going to be. You can go out to practice and put a cone or a dummy, 7 yards behind the center and say, this is where Cousins is going to be. They may dash, they may boot, but no, he is going to be right here. And so the guys in the middle, what you can't do is take an edge on the guard and run up the field, and you collapse the pocket on a Kirk Cousins. You just take the center, the guards, and just take them right down the middle and do the best you can to march that guy into the lap of the quarterback. And don't just collapse the whole thing. Right, you don't get edgy and do a ton of stunts and all. You just mash it all together and keep people in his face for the entire game, then that's where he gets uncomfortable. So that's that's a subtle but very important, I think, difference in how you go after an immobile quarterback. And you can play man behind you. You can play 2-man if you want, because he's not going to pull it down and run. Right, so you can do some things coverage-wise and let your DBs keep their eyes on the receivers a little bit more than having to keep an eye on the quarterback in case he pulls that thing down and runs. So your coverage options open up as well.
The Analyst.
Thank you, Pete. Have a good week.
You too, man. Thank you.
Pete Bercich, analyst for the Minnesota Vikings Radio Network, courtesy of Soukup and Soukup.com. The Talkback machine, very much in play. Likewise for the texting at 64686. Let's see what you guys have up your sleeves when 9 to noon continues around the corner at FM 100.3 KFAN.
Man.
Let's see what's going on the mind. 3-2. Let's see what is going on in the minds of 9 to noon KFAN listeners who have some thoughts on Minnesota Vikings football. We have talkbacks via the free iHeartRadio app, and we have texting at 64686. Nordo, the producer, mad producer, he mans the talkback and or texting machines. And he's at the helm, and here he is.
Yeah, let me hit you with this. I kind of love the way that he framed it up, but a question for the Vikes.
EA, if you were the coach after the game, and you were handing out game balls, who would you give them out to? Don't say the 3 players that actually got them.
So it's stretching my memory. I believe it was Redmond.
Yeah.
It was Shaq Griffin for the game sealer.
Yeah.
And I think there was
Aaron Jones.
It was Aaron Jones. We love you. Messed up early, but you got the dagger TD. So those were the 3 game balls. By the way, I hope everything's okay with that talkback. Maybe he's whispering because he's in the office. But it's very, blink twice if you're okay.
Right. That's a very cool question. So the game balls go to Jalen Redmond, Shaq Griffin, and there's your dagger, and Aaron Jones, who used to play for the dagger. I would say I would have given a game ball to kicker Parker Romo, and I would have thanked him in front of all of his teammates, brothers, so to speak, for the contribution that he gave the Minnesota Vikings for basically a quarter of the season. They won every single game. Parker Romo played with them. He hit a walk-off winner at Soldier Field, which like Ryan Longwell does in 2007. And he hit the extra point to win the game yesterday. Okay, it's an extra point. It's still 35 yards. It's still with a lot of pressure on you. Pressure is pressure. Not everybody's designed for pressure. Parker Romo is. And I'd give a game ball to him and wish him well on his travels. Parker Romo.
By the way, I mean, all things considered, we're going to get the Alabama rookie back.
Yeah.
How cool is it for Parker Romo, by the way? Not just we're benefiting from him doing what he did. He has more than likely set himself up with at least one or two opportunities. He's going to be kicking for another team in the NFL. Romo, I think, has been fantastic in his stretch with us. He's going to get another shot somewhere, I think.
Yeah, and if I'm out Baltimore way, then there could be reason to wonder if what's next is the Tucker Pucker. Parker Romo, absolutely. Kind of surprised he didn't get one, but that's okay. I would do the same for Jake McQuaid. I would give him one too. You were the long snapper probably for 4 games, assuming 5 in a row, 4 Serpo, 5 in a row, 4 Serpo, 5 in a row, 4 Serpo. Assuming Andrew DePaula returns next game. Well, McQuaid didn't mess anything up. I mean, it's people are like, well, we're happy for you. Yeah, you're happy for us until the long snapper's snap is high to get to the Super Bowl, or until the long snapper dribbles the center. A long snapper dribbles one back, and it messes everything up. So I understand the gravity of the position, and they're underrated positions until they make mistakes. And in McQuaid's first game, Ryan Wright bailed him out on a bad snap. So I would have given one to Jake McQuaid.
Why don't you just make it a 3-piece with the special teams unit? How about Ryan Wright? Just a couple of punts, but they mattered, PA.
No doubt.
And you know what? It's not the number of punts, it's how they go off. And how about that long one, that 59-yarder, and that punt inside the 20? How about 3 for 3 to the special teams while you're at it?
Well, with McQuaid, 14th year Ohio State University. I mean, he's football immortality, snapping immortality. Won a Super Bowl. He snapped in a Super Bowl. Holy cow. Talk about pressure. But that probably was it for him. So you go undefeated with 2 guys who weren't supposed to be here in the first place. Yeah, as they leave, let them leave with game balls they may never get the rest of their lives. Thirdly, after watching a quarter and a half of all of Sam Darnold's throws, to answer a question presented to yours truly by the Con about this guy, Justin Jefferson. One thing I did notice would lead a game ball going the way of Trent Sherfield Sr.
Ooh.
And I would just say to Trent, on behalf of all quarterbacks ever to quarterback in the history of the NFL, I'd like to give you this game ball as an apology for being missed center of the field for what would have been an 86-yard touchdown.
I always love that one.
So you don't get many opportunities.
Do you remember who it ultimately went to and for what?
I think it was a sack. I think. And hey, Sam, the man on the fan with the clutch gene, 0 of 23 when down 13 points or more as a starter. Well, now it's 1 in 23 because he came back from that 2-score deficit. But so I've said this before, whether you're super special Josh Allen, Lamar throwing softballs, Tom Brady being the greatest in the history ever to great, Montana, Young, or Vince Ferragamo. It doesn't matter who you are. You're going to have misses every single game. You can't belabor them. And Darnold's good at that, putting things that he may know were there, and the coaches know they drew up and it was there and you could have gotten it. It's like that weird 13-step drop at Tottenham Hotspur when Addison was gone for a 60-some-odd-yard touchdown. It's a hard position. People get discombobulated. I would give Trent Sherfield Sr., who has 1 touchdown he has 1 touchdown for the Minnesota Vikings, I would have given him a game ball and an apology letter saying, sorry, you were missed, center of the field, for what could have been an 86-yard touchdown.
I always love that one.
Those would be my three.
Let's rattle through a few talkbacks, and then I have a text message for you, another scenario-related question. But here's some talkbacks.
Hey guys, Mike in New Richmond. Sam Darnold was cold-blooded again. How many times this year has he driven us down the field when it mattered the most?
Very quiet again.
He's done it again.
Yeah.
This is a $10 million quarterback that everyone has written off. I will take Sam Darnold 100 times out of 100 compared to Kirk Cousins, who threw 4 interceptions yesterday for $50 million. You got to be kidding. It's not even close. Thanks, guys. Have a great day.
Make it $100 million guaranteed. I understand that. And, it's Kirk threw a pick 6 yesterday. I think he threw 7 with the Minnesota Vikings, including 3 in his very first year. So there were moments like that. And there have been some Jacksonville-esque moments for Darnold where he's trying to force it to 18 and you nearly lose the game to a bad team, a team that was really struggling. So the compare and contrast, it's different teams. You got No Sherfield Sr. doing what he's doing in the blocking game. Kirk had Hawkinson for an entire season. Sam didn't. The running game with Madison and Akers and Ty last year, completely different this year. So it's completely different. But with Sam, I'll share what I had an opportunity last night to go on the radio with a friend of mine named Jody Mack, who works for CBS Sports Radio. And he has a Sunday night show, and I join him every so often. And we were chatting last night about Sam Darnold. And what I shared about Sam is, I've just gotten to know Sam the last, I'd say 2.5, 3 weeks. Couple of highs, couple of fist bumps, good job, stuff like that. But, really chatting with him. And we both spent significant time in Southern California, so we know a lot of the same places, stuff like that. So there are some commonalities, but approaching Sam and talking to Sam, if you're somebody like me, it maybe I'm making this up, wasn't the easiest thing in the world. To watch Sam Darnold the last few weeks, really the last month and change, at the facility, after games, home and road, recognize that he can trust, that Sam, it's okay to be happy. It's the days of the chiding and the columns and the cheap shots and the low-hanging fruit, tomato cans thrown from the 4th level of a stadium. Those are all gone. I mean, you'll take some of the slings and arrows of outrageous negatives, but you've shown brothers, teammates, fans, rooms, what you can do, what you're capable of. And just to watch him become more comfortable within his skin in the locker room after wins and losses, that's been a real treat. And that's, one of the real beauties of the behind the scenes part of this job is the wins are cool and the losses are things with which you deal. But watching personalities develop over the course of time, recognizing, A, we have no idea what it's like to walk in those size 14 shoes. But secondly, those are his shoes, and that's his walk. And that's the one that was chosen for him. And here he is. And we're all part of it. So accepting and embracing and just having that culture we talk about of acceptance. It's just been really great to watch Sam Darnold just kind of blossom as a guy and as a teammate, watching it in ancillary fashion. So that with Sam Darnold, that's what resonates with me after the victory over the Arizona Cardinals.
Another talkback.
Good morning, gentlemen. Brad in South Dakota. Just a quick thing on the Vikes. It just seems like this team's identity is definitely the defense, which with KOC you would think would be the opposite. And not saying that's a horrible thing, but I just feel like when this offense does completely figure it out, we could really have something special on our hands as far as this team goes. I mean, you look at Darnold's stat lines on a week-to-week basis, and he's actually having really good games. It just seems like we can't finish drives due to penalties and turnovers and whatnot.
That's a good talk back. I'm not going to say the team is identity less, but what with all this fact and reality that we discuss or Kevin O'Connell shares Tuesdays 9 to noon, we then do work on it not to validate it because he's right, but just to know exactly what he's talking about with this unprecedented coverage Justin Jefferson receives game after game. To know that, yet recognize they have, I believe, 45 or 46. Let's go with 45 completions of 20 yards or more, which is the most in the NFL. And it's more than the Detroit Lions, who are right behind them. So the Lions have sustained a lot of injuries, and the Lions have had their same quarterback for half a decade, their same running backs, couple of years now, Amon-Ra St. Brown, handful of years, Jamison Williams. They have their bit. Decker over to Penei Sewell, Ragnow, Chanhassen go crazy in the middle. They know what's coming 10 out of 10 times because of the cohesiveness of being together that long. From an offensive standpoint, you have a new quarterback, you have a new tailback, you have a wide receiver getting tripled, you have a second wide receiver now starting to give more doubles. You're without your tight end half the season, yet you still have found a way to complete 45 passes at 20 yards or more, because that's who O'Connell is. He's a strike hard, frequently and aggressively, intermediate and beyond, and specifically with the middle zone. He just attacks the middle zone in McVay-like fashion as well, if not better than anybody in the league. So I understand the identity question with what is now 39 sacks and 18 interceptions, and those numbers are ballyhooed. There's no doubt about it. But the offense, I mean, this offense, when it hums, it looks like the defense when it's sacking quarterbacks 5 and 6 times a game. So I'm not going to say it's identity-less, but they're strange bedfellows in that they complement each other wonderfully. It's not always visible how it's working, but the timeliness of the complementary nature between those two has led them to a 10-2 record.
Welcome back. News to Nord brought to you by The Casino at Canterbury Park, CanterburyPark.com. Poker, blackjack, and table games all year round. Feeling the felt, having sips of chips. Live racing, we're all waiting for that. We got to wait a while until next spring. But in the meantime, you got NFL Pick'em on Thursdays. You have events throughout the year. Best place in Shakopee to go for all of the family. CanterburyPark.com. I'm sure at some point this week, when we find time to have Lavelle on, we'll touch on this even more. But did it shock you after what you saw on Thanksgiving Day? The Chicago Bears driving with an opportunity, looked down and out, looked destitute most of the game. They get a couple of scoring drives together. They're driving again with an opportunity to tie the game on Turkey Day against the Lions. Caleb Williams, after the game, says that because they ran out of time. That's what happened. We know that part on Thanksgiving. But Caleb says he changed the play, worried about being tackled in bounds, thought he'd go for it all. Head coach with a timeout in his pocket, kind of acting like a passenger, watching all of this unfold and not stepping in just to pause the game and get their heads right. But Eberflus fired after that taking place on Thursday, did a small media availability, I believe, and then was let go shortly after that. Any of that surprise you with his tenure coming to an end?
Wow, the Chicago Bears firing a coach in season, that never happens. So you're generally asked to leave during the course of the run when there's insubordination. People just don't want to see you around anymore for whatever the reason. And perhaps that situation played into it. But they, how am I going to put this? The Bears have a press conference today in an hour. Kevin Warren, the team president, Ryan Poles, the general manager, are going to speak. I'll be curious to hear what they have to say about some of these situations because, you know, Chicago, up until the Vikings beat them, were undefeated at home. That ain't bad. And they're playing some good teams right down to the wire. So there's more to asking a man to go with like five games left in the year than just these situational situations.
Let me stick to the NFL because I know with Parker Fox around the corner, whether it's the Wolves beating the Clips, they're hosting the Lakers tonight. Right. Finally, they stopped the bleeding of a losing streak.
Right.
Gophers got the axe on Saturday. Really wasn't a game. They were up 21-0 mid-third.
Friday.
Field goal from Kesich, a Black Friday axe-winning game out in Madison. They've now won 3 of their last 4 against Wisconsin after all that stretch that they had where getting the axe seemed like an impossibility. I think it's the first time in a long time Wisconsin might not be bowl eligible either. So tough times in Madison for them.
2+ decades.
And the Wild swept the rest of the week after they lost to Winnipeg. They went to Buffalo and won, then they hosted the Hawks and Preds. They're tied for Winnipeg most points in the NHL. It's the best start in franchise history points-wise. They have a game in hand on the peg, and they host the Canucks tomorrow night. So that's local stuff that we'll jump into. But I do want to get to the NFL. An old familiar name, PA, with a kick return touchdown out in New York.
Wanwu and Gibson
Glad
back
you
deep
played
to
that.
receive, and Wanwu will take it from the 1-yard line. Runs it out to the 15 to the 20. Breaks a couple of tackles, loose at the 35-40. Wanwu left sideline 50. He's at the 40, gets a block. He's got it. At the 20, at the 10, 5, touchdown! That's a Jet touchdown!
Is it fair to say, PA, that the Vikings, one way or another, I don't think Wanwu ultimately will ever develop into any sort of bell cow running back, but have the Vikings identified 2 of the best kick returners in the last 20 years?
Right.
And Devin, obviously, HOF quality,
No, I got you.
mostly on punts.
Yeah.
But I think that's Kenay's 4th career kick return.
It is.
Prior to that, obviously, I'm referencing Cordero Patterson, who holds the NFL record with kick returns. He got one with the Jets in a crazy game. They were up 21-0 after that play. Love Kenay. Then they're driving to go up 28-7, and it was Leonard Williams with a pick six.
7 from the
wow.
9.
Against his former
Blitz is
team.
coming, throw inside. It's picked off. Leo Williams coming near side. He's running like a racehorse. He's at midfield. Turns upfield, has blockers. Holy smokes, are you kidding? Leo Williams is going to take it in for a touchdown. Seahawks.
And the Jets lose. But Kenay, then you get the thick 6. Like, that was sweet.
The thick 6. I love that. Leonard Williams, former Jet, sticking it to his former team. That's cool. Leonard Williams, when Teddy Bridgewater caught Jarius Wright in overtime against the Jets. When Jarius broke free, Leonard Williams was one of the guys, like, trying to go thick 6 on it and huffing and puffing trying to get him with Sheldon Richardson. So that's just for context how long Leonard Williams has been around. With Kenay Wanwu, if you let him get outside the numbers and you let him get the sideline, you're all done. He just, when he gets the sideline, it's over, Johnny. And he's different from Percy Harvin in that Percy was a fantastic kick returner. Percy weaved his way through the middle of the field. And Percy liked bouncing off guys and then putting the pedal to the metal again. He and Kenay are different. But from Percy through Kenay and Flash, some great kick returners for this team.
Takes the snap, quick hitter, thrown behind, but somehow caught, and now lateral to Allen, and reaching for the pylon. Are you kidding me? It's a touchdown! A catch by Amari Cooper, a lateral to Josh Allen, and he runs the remaining 5 yards for the score.
The global news from that game, the PCL injury to Christian McCaffrey, who just can't stay healthy after the Achilles bits earlier this year.
Oh, PCL.
PCL might be not career, I guess, at this point, but year-ending for him with McCaffrey. The Bills were just clowning on the Niners last night. Like, there was absolutely... James Cook gets out for a 65-yard touchdown.
Yeah.
Josh Allen, I don't know if he's ready to win a Super Bowl. I don't know what that looks like. He still has to topple the Chiefs. But they have these games and these moments against formidable foes and good defenses and high-end equity, the snow and everything included. Shanahan's offense, by the way, built for weather games like that when everything's going the right way. Josh Allen can be the most amazing player in the NFL.
Yeah.
Last night was one of those games. He had another one of those, I'm just going to run it in, and no matter what you do, I'll break 6 tackles, don't care. And the snowballs were flying. The Bills, they still got to do it in the postseason, but they are absolutely just busting through. They've already clinched the division, PA, through 12 games.
Okay, the overused at times trite reference, culture. It's in play here.
Might be, yeah.
Diggs and Gabe Davis leave, and they're better. And they're more cohesive. And now people know who Khalil Shakir is. and Keon Coleman when he's healthy.
Yeah.
Dalton Kincaid, high-end tight end, goes down. They dust off Schultz. I think it's Schultz or Knox, one of the two.
Dawson Knox, your
Thank you.
favorite Gophers basketball player and Bills tight end.
Yep, no relation to Ed Oliver, formerly the starting right guard for the Minnesota Vikings.
Also with the Bills.
All right, 3-2. Culture. You let Diggs and Gabe Davis leave. They both got big opinions. We know Steph. He has a big opinion. And they're better.
Yeah.
Secondly, culture. I knew a few weeks ago, and I just referenced it in passing here during NFL Du Nord. I had no idea where it was going to go. When Deebo Samuel is attempting to start a fight with kicker Jake Moody on the sideline after he misses a kick that loses the game, your culture's broken. Now, Trent Williams and Nick Bosa were out again yesterday. Well, that obviously matters. But Next Level Shanny has a team, like you said, perfectly. It's built to overcome injuries and win games in conditions like that, and they got killed.
Yeah, they had a bad fumble. Your guy Juszczyk, always solid.
Yeah.
Tough handoff, dropped it at the doorstep.
I don't think, and I love Deebo Samuel, man. I don't think he's into it. I just really don't think he's into it. And they're not going to go to the playoffs. I mean,
they're out.
In that division. What do they got? 5 left or whatever?
5 left, and they're down 2 to the Seahawks right now. Seahawks at 7-5, and then Rams and Cards are 6-6, and they're 5-7. The Niners are.
Yeah, it's when you've been to the Super Bowl, and several of them have been there multiple times, and you know what that feels like, and then you know what this feels like. Well, you know how to dig deeply to pull out what is good and what got you to the metaphorical promised land, even though you got pushed off the mountain. But when you don't have your dogs to get there, like Trent Williams and Nick Bosa, I mean, they're playing without Trent Williams and Nick Bosa. That's unbelievable. They're able to even keep games as close as they have at certain times. But it's a 0 or 100 thing with teams like that. When they hit a 0 and you got Deebo throwing punches at his own kicker late in the game at home, and the long snapper has to jump in, and he looked at Deebo and he's like, that's my guy, let's go. You want to go right now? I'll go. And Deebo walked away. Well, that's a 0 on the culturometer.
Yeah.
And they've been a 100. So they're a black or white situation. There's no gray area with the Niners.
They're 1-3 in the division. They've lost to each of their division foes already. I mean, they're in a tough spot, losing games and maybe any head-to-head tiebreakers. My last bit for you, I want to play I'm going to just play Uncle Jim.
It will be a 30-yard field goal attempt.
Is this the one I sent you?
The spot a little low.
Game
the
winner?
Is airborne. It is airborne. It's airborne. It is good. Bucks win. Bucks
Pulled
win.
right into the
Bucks
garage.
beat
Thought of the con.
Panthers in overtime.
I played the Kene Nwangwu kick return TD. The Bucks win in OT.
Mm-hmm.
Just, if you can, search on social media and see what Adam Thielen was doing with a football yesterday that doesn't look real. Defying physics. He had this touchdown that wasn't at the back of the end zone. One of the greatest one-handed catches in OT that you'll ever see.
Wow.
And then Chuba Hubbard fumbles it on the freaking next play. Yaya Diaby, though, that led to that kick you just heard. Adam Thielen was on one. Bryce Young coming along.
Yeah.
Bryce Young might not be washed.
That's
he might not
great.
be over for the kid.
That's awesome. And when Adam scored that big touchdown late,
There we go, Paul.
got loose with the gritty in honor of his friend.
That wasn't very good. His teammate was much better at it.
It's 11:03. Let's pause. The power forward is in studio for an elongated segment, much about which to chat when we return to KFAN.